Hello, hello, hello. Welcome today to another Hustle and Heels live session. So I'm Jay. Hi, Rashida. Fantastic. Hello to everyone that is joining. Thank you for joining. I am Jay, so I'm one of the founders of Hustle and Heels. And today we are going to be joined, hi Rashida, live by Rashida. And Rashida's going to talk to us all about business, intellectual property, trademarks, and we're going to get into it. How are you, Rashida?
I'm really well, thank you.
Good.
This lovely bright sunshine in my face. Can't go out, but you know, it's nice to see it through the window.
Same. I'm just exactly the same. Sitting in the office so I can see outside. It looks lovely. So I'm really glad that you've joined us today. Thank you for joining. I know that this time is lunchtime for a lot of people, so a lot of people are just on their breaks. But, you know, we are using today really to talk to you a bit about the work that you do supporting businesses from a legal, business, intellectual side of things, from that point of view, which is super important, but something that, you know, is not top of the agenda for small business owners and startups. So we thought it was really great just to have you as part of the community. For those that don't know, Rashida is joining Hustle and Heels as one of the advisors. So that is going to be, yay, invaluable expertise just to have someone that, you know, you can go to, that you can connect with and ask all of your IP related questions to. So
all business legal angles covered. IP is
absolutely,
but it's an important part.
Okay, so everyone, let us know if you can hear us and see us okay. If you've got any problems, let us know in the comments. So for those of you who just joined, Rashida is a lawyer, an award-winning lawyer, and has experience having worked with business owners globally. I think I'm right in saying that, Rashida, from your history. And
Africa.
Say it again, I didn't hear you.
With a heavy focus on Africa, I'm proud to say.
Yeah, lovely. Love that. So just talk to us a bit about maybe your background and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I started out my legal career at Hogan Lovells, which is one of the world's largest law firms. And I focused on international arbitration, which probably means very little to many of you. But in fact, it was literally just helping corporations deal with disputes, contract disputes primarily, that they found themselves in, typically not in the UK, but involving operations in Africa, in the Far East, sometimes in South America. So it meant lots of travel and great opportunity to see how businesses really work. You know, how did they get as big as they are? What are the things that they do that the others don't do so well?
Yeah.
And so I guess after about just under 10 years of doing that, I reached a point where I just felt that the expertise and knowledge that I gained could have so much more of an impact if it was focused on those businesses who are not yet the big corporations, but absolutely have the potential to get there. And I also recognized that, you know, there weren't a lot of commercial business lawyers with my background. I'm half Caribbean, half West African. And that lack of representation, I think, has led to a bit of detachment when it comes to getting legal services. You know, it can be daunting for people in our community. So I really wanted to do something about that. And so I started Strand Sahara almost 2 years ago now. And work with small businesses, SMEs and startups to give them the sort of legal protection that these big corporations have, but, you know, at a more accessible price.
Yeah, I think it's so important, isn't it? Because it's something that can feel really scary when we're thinking about the legal side of business. You know, we start out maybe with a passion, or we recognise that there's a gap in the market and we can fill it with our product or service. But actually having all of the regulations and what have you in place is quite a daunting thing. And you don't always want to go into an office of someone that, you know, you've got no connection with on the surface, and you're making yourself quite vulnerable, really, aren't you, in those situations?
Absolutely. And then you add to that the concerns that people generally have about the services and think, gosh, if I'm sat in that office for 1 hour, how much is that going to cost me?
Yeah.
What value do I get out of that? And I think it's really something that the lawyers haven't done so well. We haven't communicated our value, I think, as well as we should to smaller businesses, so that they understand why having these legal protections actually make a difference. And so that's another part of what I really want to do, just to bring that information, really, so that people understand, you know, the benefits of getting this legal protection. It's not seen as something that's not relevant for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said is so key, just in terms of having that knowledge and having access to services such as yours. So talk to us a bit about business intellectual property. What is it, and what small business owners should sort of have in their minds as they're building their businesses?
Well, I really wanted to send the message about protecting your brand today.
Yeah.
Intellectual property covers a wide variety of potential rights, but the brand is something that really affects most businesses, if not all of them. Nowadays, most companies are successful on the back of their reputation and goodwill, and that's all in their brand. So when you're starting out, making sure that you firstly create a brand that is distinctive, that will enable your business to grow and gain that reputation that you need to scale up, but then also protecting that brand using the legal protections available to you is super important. So I really wanted to focus in on that today in the time that we have. And I think the key intellectual property protection for protecting your brand is trademark, really.
Sure.
And so, well, I really want to dig into that a bit deeper today, and also take any questions. So if you do have, please do let us know and we'll try to cover them.
Yeah, fantastic. So talk to us about trademarks, what a trademark is, maybe some examples that, you know, we may be familiar with, or examples of, you know, small businesses that have come to you with a issue around trademarks and how you have helped them. Just to put it into context for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say trademark, what I mean is any mark which distinguishes your products or services from those of your competitors. So by that, it's more than not. The key differentiator is the name. So your brand name or your product name, depending on the type of product or service you have. But often you also have a logo, so that's also a mark by which we identify who you are and the source of your products. And some easy examples of those are Netflix or Apple. We all know what those brand names stand for, the companies and products that sit behind them. But in addition, Apple have the iPod, the iPad. So these product names are also marks which are capable of being protected. Logos, we see them every day. Think of the McDonald's double arch. That's probably one of the most recognizable logos in the world. You've got the Nike swoosh. Those are all marks. And then you've got some more unusual marks like slogans. So you've got Just Do It, which is the Nike slogan. Jingles. So McDonald's have the I'm loving it jingle. That's protected. You can even protect colours. So I do not own any Christian Louboutin shoes, but many of my friends do. And what they love about them is it's a distinctive red sole. That colour is protected. If you're, you know, developing a high heel shoe, you cannot put that red colour on the sole without infringing Christian Louboutin's trademark. Cadbury's milk chocolate, that purple is protected.
Yeah.
You can also protect sounds, believe it or not. If those, so if you've been to the cinema, like many of us have, but not recently for quite a long time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You would have heard the lion roar at the beginning of films. So that roar is actually protected. What else? Shapes as well can be protected. So if you have a product that you have in a way that's really distinctive to you, like the Toblerone chocolates, for example, pyramid style, that can be protected too. So about, you know, the range of protection is huge there, but there are things that make your particular product or service distinctive, that help people to identify that it's come from you.
Yeah, fantastic. Love that. Thank you so much for that distinction and just making it a bit easier for us to all understand. And I guess something like a sound is maybe something that doesn't come to our mind straight away. So just want to read some of I saw that there were a few comments and questions. So someone said they've just started this process yesterday, so they're really glad they joined. So David says, do you have experience in shareholders agreements? I know that's a bit off topic today, but...
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was explaining at the beginning, one of the things I really wanted to do was to get across to small business owners what the key legal protections are, a full set of what you need to worry about as a business owner. What we're talking about today, intellectual property, is just one of those. There are 5 in total, and shareholders agreements is one of them. And that's simply because your business, the ownership of your business, how it's controlled, how it's run, you need full clarity over that. And that is primarily achieved through having a shareholders agreement with your business partners, any investors that may be involved, which sets out really clearly who owns what happens if you all disagree on how the business should move forward, and how each of you can leave the business. You know, if you want to transfer your shares, bring someone else in, what is the process? So it's real safety net for the business, and ensures that if things don't quite go to plan, I hope you can still hear me. I've gone a little bit...
Yeah, you cut out a bit there, but we can still hear you. That's fine. Oh, yes, I can.
Can someone in the comments...
It's cutting in and out
if you can hear me? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
it's a bit frozen, but hopefully you're hearing what I'm saying. But essentially, so shareholders agreements, absolutely we do cover, and that's one of the key protections. The other 3 are your service agreements, so people who work for you, your standard contract for your customers, and then finally your structure, the structure of your business. So whether you're incorporated or operating as a sole trader, just understanding what works best for you, and then how to make sure that you're complying with the legal obligations that come with that particular structure. So we've gone a little bit off topic there, but just wanted to give people an overview of those 5 key areas, of which intellectual property is one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for adding that. And for anyone that wasn't here right at the beginning, I did say that Rashida is joining us as a Hustle+Heels advisor. So her profile will be up on the website shortly, and you will be able to get in contact with Rashida and have those one-to-one talks, conversations, so that you can discuss any areas that are of concern to you, that you don't know about, that you want to dig a bit deeper into in terms of the legal side of things. Now, Rashida has frozen on my side of things. Guys, let me know if you can hear me or Rashida. Okay, I think she's back.
I think I'm back.
So, I think you are back. Yeah, fantastic. So there was a question from Prosper which said, do regions matter? And I think that it was really in relation to when you were talking about trademarks.
Sorry, can you repeat that for me, Jay?
Yeah, so there was a question from Prosper which said, do regions matter? And I think that was when you were talking about trademarks, and then he also went on to ask, what's the impact if you don't have intellectual property protection?
Okay, so countries definitely matter in the sense that you need to get intellectual property protection in each of the jurisdictions in which you operate. So if you're based in the UK, you sell all your products in the UK, then getting a UK registered trademark is what you want to do. But if you are operating globally, say, and you want to send your products to clients across Europe, then you'll also want to get protection in Europe as well. Now, we were part of the European Union not so long ago, so it was possible to get a trademark to protect your mark across the whole territory. Now, though, you would need to protect yourself in the UK separately, and then in the EU separately. But the great thing is that EU protection covers you across all of the remaining 27 member states. Same applies for the US. There's a separate system there. In each of the African countries that I operate in as well, they all have separate systems as well. So it's just a matter of really identifying where you want to sell your products, and looking forward as well, because a trademark lasts 10 years. You then, of course, can renew it after that, but you want to make sure that everything that you plan to do for the next 5 to 10 years, you anticipate now, so that your application is wide enough to cover not just the right countries, but also the right classes of products. Mm-hmm. Because you might right now just be selling, let's say you're in the beauty market and you sell lipsticks, but you plan in 2 years' time to broaden that to foundation and blushes, what have you. You make sure that your trademark covers all of those, so that you have that protection over the 10 years. The other question was about what are the risks if you don't get the protection?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Do you know, it's really sad that the majority of situations in which a business owner goes to a lawyer regarding their IP rights is when things have gone wrong.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's too late at that point. So what typically has happened is somebody has used their brand name to build a new business, which is in direct competition with them, or they've taken a domain name, which makes it seem as though that they are the same as you, and they're not. Mm-hmm. Effectively, what they're doing is getting all the traffic that you've worked so hard to get coming from their website, and generating income and revenue off the back of your hard work and goodwill. So it can be quite damaging. And what happens in those situations typically is that you either decide to completely rebrand, and obviously that's quite costly and difficult, or you can try and fight it, but if you don't have a registered trademark, it's quite difficult to do that. The legal hurdles that you need to jump over in order to have a claim are quite steep. And so you'd have to show that you have been generating revenue under this brand, that people recognize it as something that's associated with you, that the other side are causing confusion in the market, confusion in the sense that people think they're dealing with you when they're dealing with them. These are all things that you have to prove, and can be quite hard to do that, and obviously quite costly to go into legal proceedings. So making sure that you deal with this up front is really important. And I
prevention better than cure, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And one of the other mistakes that I think I really want to mention, because it's important, is building your brand without first checking if somebody else has the right to that thing. That's happened as well, and it means that you can be operating for quite a while before this other company becomes aware of you. At that point, you might be doing really well. You've been going for 5 years, you've built up a following and customers, and they just write you a cease and desist letter, as we say, and tell you that you've got to stop because you're infringing upon their intellectual property rights. And that's obviously very disappointing. So avoiding those situations by being really careful in the beginning to make sure that your brand name is yours and is capable of being protected and is protected is really doing.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. I mean, it can sound quite scary and it can feel a bit daunting, but I think exactly as you said, coming to someone like you when things are unfortunately going wrong is probably a position that none of us want to be in. So let me just go to another question. So someone said, hi, I'm a beauty brand. I make products at home and sell them at markets and online. I eventually want to do skincare consultations and facials. Which classes do I need to register?
Okay, so you've got a mixture of goods and services there. You'll see that there are, just trying to remember the number now, I think there's 45 different classes of goods and services that apply when you come to registering a trademark. And the first 34 of them relate to goods. So for the actual stuff you're selling in the market, you'll have to look through those first 34 and pick out the ones which best represent what it is that you sell. And then for the services that you plan to do later, those will come in the 35 to 45 categories. There is a tool online. It's a trademark. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'll have to send you the link. But
yeah.
that you can use, that if you put in your product or service, then it will generate for you the different classes that it might possibly fall into, and then you'll just need to decide which one applies for you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So we will get the link from Rashida for that tool and send it to everyone that wants it, everyone that's watching. Just send us a little message, probably send us a message in the Facebook group and let us know that you want it, and then we'll forward that on from Rashida. Before I forget as well, Rashida has a fantastic tool. What's the guide, should I say? A guide that she has generously said that she's happy to share with everyone that's watching as well. So again, if you want a copy of that guide, then please do let us know and we will send you the link for it. So Rashida, one more question that I can see at the moment. It says, what happens if a person objects to your trademark? What would be the next steps after that?
Well, it will all depend on the grounds for their objection and whether or not those grounds are likely to succeed. So there are situations in which an existing trademark holder will have a really strong right to object if, let's say, you're operating in the same category of them. So you're in the same line of business and your name is so similar that it would cause people to be confused as to whether they're dealing with them or you when they see that name. That's a really strong case for their objection being upheld. But then some people object quite unfairly. It might be that they're in a different line of business, but they just anyone else using that name. And they've chosen a class or category which is quite broad and covers so many different things, but actually they're only focused on one. And in that situation, if you can show that, look, since they've had this trademark, they have not gone into this line of business, it doesn't appear that they have any plans to do so, then you may be able to show that their use of, or rather their registration of the name in that particular line of business should not be upheld because they're not using it. You're not allowed to register a trademark in order to prevent other people from. You have to actually be using it yourself. So that's one area in which you might have a strong case against someone objecting. But other than that, it will depend on your individual circumstances. It's really difficult to give a general response to it. The IPO office, though, are really helpful. So do speak to them, speak to the examiners. Don't hesitate to call them up, actually, and speak to someone on the phone because they are there. That's their job. Do ask questions, and you've paid for the service. So don't hesitate to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Prosper said thank you for responding to his question as well. And I've got another question from, I think it's from Anika. She says, what if you operate in the UK, but you manufacture your products in China?
Well, if you're not planning to actually sell your products in China, then I would say you don't need to worry about getting protection over your brand name there. There are other forms of intellectual property protection that you probably do want to worry about, though, and that's in relation to your contract with the manufacturer. Now, it will depend on whether they're producing something bespoke for you or whether you're just buying something that many people are able to buy from them. But in the case that they were developing something bespoke for you that you had perhaps given them the design for, then you would want to make sure that you've got an agreement with them, the manufacturer, which sets out very clearly that you own all of the intellectual property rights in the goods or the products that they are creating for you, in the designs, in anything that they're creating for you. And that's just to make sure that going forward, you always have ownership of your own creations. What you don't want is for the manufacturer to turn around and start selling your product to people, which they can do if they have the property rights to that particular design or product. So having what we call an intellectual property assignment clause in that contract will make sure that you're able to retain intellectual property rights in those goods that are being produced for you, so that you have that protection and can prevent them from using your product.
Yeah.
What else?
I think that's so key, and I think that's something that could potentially affect a lot of small business owners because, you know, manufacturing is taken outside of the UK to other regions where it feels it may be cheaper to do so, and it's not necessarily something that we would think about. We may not think, actually, if I'm thinking of this unique way to solve this problem with my product, actually, do I need to protect myself from the manufacturer as well? So thank you for making that really clear, because I think that's really important for people to start thinking about and consider. So thank you for that. So there's another question in which says, what if your brand name is already taken outside the UK? I'm guessing that this person, it's from My Layla, so I'm guessing that they want to operate in the UK, but the brand name's already taken out elsewhere. Let me know if that's wrong, but yeah, what's your response to that?
So if your plan is to stay in the UK market, then that's fine. If your plan is to expand beyond the UK market into markets where this other person has protection, then do a little bit of digging, find out what protection they have. It might be that they're using a name and they haven't protected it at all, in which case you might be in a really strong position to move quickly, get that protection in those countries that you want to operate in first. But if they have registered a trademark in respect of that brand in the other countries in which they operate, and you are definitely in direct competition with them, then the other thing to think about is whether a rebrand might be the best way forward, so that you're not, I guess, your success isn't limited to one market. And I know it's quite painful to think about that, but, you know, you've always in business got to have an eye to your long-term goal and how you're going to get there. And if you know that expanding into foreign markets with that particular brand name is going to be problematic for you, it's going to cause issues with this competitor, then you're already putting a cap really on your business potential. So I would say investigate first whether or not they're protected. Think about whether you really want to go into those markets as well. See, you know, how much overlap there is between your businesses, and really from that position of information and knowledge, you'll be able to make a better decision as to the best way forward. But in terms of the UK market, you know, you can protect yourself here and you'll be fine.
Fantastic, thank you. I can see lots of comments saying that this is really useful, really powerful, given the time that we're in at the moment. So people are saying fantastic advice, you're dropping gems, so thank you. Rashida, as I said, guys, Rashida is a Hustle+Heels advisor, so you can connect with her and we will send out her details and how to do that, so you can have those one-to-one conversations and get a bit deeper into the questions. We've got a limited time today, so we may not get through all of the questions, but Rashida's details can be shared with you all. So somebody else, Miss Nora K, has said, if there is another company that shares the same name, is in a different class, can you still move forward with protecting your name? So I think you touched on that a bit already, but maybe just respond to that briefly.
And let me give you an example. Okay, Galaxy, that is protected in the confectionery class for Mars. You know, the chocolate bar. It's also protected by Ford because they have a Galaxy, what do you call those cars? I forget, but the 7-seater car that they have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Galaxy. So it's exact same name, same spelling, everything, but because they're in two completely different classes, you can, you know, Mars has it protected for chocolate, Galaxy, Ford rather, have it protected for cars.
Fantastic, thank you for that. There's another question in, but I think you may have just answered it. It says, if you register a trademark against certain products and services, someone can use your brand and name against other services and products that you haven't. Okay, that's more of what you were just talking about. Okay, let me just go through and check that I haven't missed any other questions. I'm just scrolling through. Someone said, this is incredibly, where have I gone? This is incredibly helpful, Rashida. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been useful. Thank you for sharing. The information is so useful. Someone said, where can I find a copy of the IP assignment clause contract? So if after this, if you just send us a really quick DM, I think this is from my Layla, and we will connect you with Rashida, and then she can, talk to you a bit further and get the contracts and with those specific clauses that you need in place. Thank you. So many things I didn't know. Can you add extra classes after you have your initial trademark approved? So that's a question from Fade Candles.
Okay, you can. It's a separate application though, so you'll have to pay again. But don't be daunted by that. The cost is the IPO fee is, at the moment, it's £170 for an online application, which lasts you 10 years. So it's well worth the investment. If you have to make a second application because your business has expanded, do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's the thing to think about, isn't it? Sometimes we think about how much it costs in that instance, but we have to have that foresight and say, what is this going to add? What value is this going to add for me, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line? And you're likely to, when you think about it like that and you actually do the maths like that, it's not going to be something which you think twice about after that, I would say. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Have a prize. Yeah. Know where you want to go and act accordingly. Don't think small.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really a great note to end on in terms of, just don't think small. Think about the long term. Think about the bigger picture. Thank you, Prosper. And thank you to everyone that has commented and asked questions. Rashida, thank you so much for being so generous with your knowledge. And we are excited to have you as part of the Hustle+Heels advisors. Yeah, it's great to have you on board, and I know that it's going to be a service which is really invaluable to a lot of the small business owners, particularly for the reason that you gave in terms of, wanting to be that person that's able to support the community in ways that are essential, but often we don't have access to that support, knowledge or information. So thank you very much. Is there anything else that you want to share before we end this live today?
Thank you so much, Jay. And as you've already said, the UK trademark registration guide is available for anyone who's watched this, so please do check out the link. It will give you the information you need to do the application yourself, but if you want more support, of course, I can help you with that. And then more generally, this is, as I've said, it's just one of 5 key elements to think about for your business. So let's keep in touch, and I look forward to working with you, Jay.
Yeah, likewise. Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm sure you're going to get back to work now, but enjoy it. And thank you to everyone that's joined and watched. As we've said already, just send us a DM for the links to...
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Rashida's connection is playing havoc with us, but guys, thank you very much. We will contact you, and if we don't, then hound me and I will get the information out to you, and connect with Rashida as well, and stay safe this Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. Stay safe.